Greetings, children. So, today we're just going to review a little bit about the methods we've been talking about, both the substitution method and the elimination method, which is also called the addition method, for solving systems of equations. So, I have all the steps already written on the board. We're just going to go over the steps and I'm going to explain each one again. That way you'll have one concise video here that will have these. I'll also type these up and put them in the video description so that you can read them or refer to them without having to watch the video again. Although feel free to watch the video as many times as you want, and feel free to tell all your friends to subscribe as well, because once I get like 100,000 subscribers and 70 million views on all my videos, then I'll be raking in the cash. So let's take a look. Substitution method. Step 1 is to solve one of the equations for one of the variables. So when we talked about this method in class, we said that there's usually an easier variable to solve for in one of the equations. So sometimes there's not a good choice, which is what makes the substitution method difficult to use sometimes. But try to pick one that either has no numerical coefficient, so it's like just x or just y already, or try to pick one that has a coefficient that will divide into all of the other coefficients that are in that equation. Alright, so solve one of the equations for one of the variables. Step 2 is substitute into the other equation. So whichever equation you solved here, whether it was the first one or the second one, the top or the bottom, we're going to substitute into the opposite. So let's say on step 1 we solve for the top equation and we solve for x. Then we're going to substitute x into the bottom equation. We're always substituting into the other equation. And then what we'll have is we'll have just one variable, but it'll be in several places in that equation usually. So you simplify, and then simplify means that you use the distributive property. So take the number that's outside the parentheses where you just substituted, and multiply, and then collect like terms. Step 4 is to solve. So after you simplified, now you're solving. And then step 5 is to substitute your answer into the end of step 1. So step 1, where you solved for one of the variables, it's a lot easier just to substitute into that because it's already solved. You can substitute into one of the original equations, but you'll have to do more work. And it's work that you've already done in step 1. And then step 6 here is to check. So always check your answers on these. It only takes a minute, and you'll know that you got the answer correct. Alright, so that's the substitution method. The elimination method, also known as the addition method, works a little bit differently. Remember, our goal in the elimination method is to eliminate one of the variables by adding the two equations together. So, oftentimes, you'll have to rearrange the equations. So that's our first step. Rearrange the equations. So when we're talking about rearranging them, it means we want to have x and y on the same side of the equation, and then an equal sign, and then a number. So xy equals a number, and then xy equals a number. If you set them both up that way, where everything's lined up, then you'll be ready to do the next step, which is to multiply. So you may need to multiply just one of the equations, you may need to multiply both of the equations, or you may not need to multiply. Remember, your goal is to get opposite coefficients when you multiply. So if x has a coefficient of 2 in the first equation, and it doesn't have a coefficient in the second equation, it's just 1, then you multiply the bottom equation by -2, and now x has 2 and -2. They're opposites. Remember, opposites are just the same number, but with different signs. So one's positive, one's negative. Step 3 then is to add the equations. When you add the equations, then since you have opposites, that variable cancels. It's eliminated because you get 0 times that number, times that variable there. Step 4, since one of your variables is eliminated, then you're able to solve for the other one. So you'll just have a simple equation that has one variable. So you're able to solve, and then after you solve for that one, you substitute it into one of the original equations. Now, you can actually substitute it into one that you've multiplied by as well, but usually those are bigger numbers, And the original equations are smaller numbers, so they're easier to work with. So substitute into one of the original equations, and that'll give you your second part of your answer. Remember, your answer should always be written as an ordered pair. So you'll have a solution, and then you'll have x and then y. So whatever your solution is, it's the first part and the second part. And then, of course, step 6 is the same as step 6 in the substitution method, and that's just to check. So check those. Always check your work. You'll know you got them right. It's great for tests. It's not like on a history test where you just have to hope you remembered it correctly. Here you can check and be like, look at that. I know I got this one right. That's why history's not quite as fun as math. So anyway, hope you guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. See y'all later.